Admiral Kethfer stood on the bridge of his massive warship and looked down at the blue planet below. Earth looked small and weak from space. The Zephyrian Empire had taken over 47 worlds in the past 100 years. Each time it was the same story. They would arrive with their big ships, show their power, and the aliens would give up or fight with weak weapons. The alien admiral had read all the reports about Earth. His spies had watched the humans for months. They saw human soldiers wearing uniforms that made them easy to spot. They saw armies with clear leaders and bases that were easy to find. The humans had guns and tanks, but nothing like the Empire's weapons. Their technology was hundreds of years behind. "Sir, the humans look very weak," said Captain Nexthul, studying the data on his screen. "They have small armies. Their soldiers wear bright uniforms. We can see all their military bases from space." "This will be easy," Kethfer nodded. Every world was like this. The Empire would land, destroy the armies, and the regular people would hide in fear. The humans would be no different. They had no claws, no natural armor, no special strength. They were just another weak species waiting to be conquered. "Begin the attack," Kethfer ordered. "Target their military bases first, destroy their armies. Then the civilians will surrender." The Empire's ships moved toward Earth like dark clouds. Their weapons were ready. Their soldiers wore armor that could stop any human weapon. They had fought dozens of species and won every time. Humans would be just another easy victory. On Earth, the attack began just as planned. The Empire's forces hit military bases around the world. Human soldiers in their uniforms fought back, but their weapons barely scratched the alien armor. The bases fell one by one. Jets crashed from the sky. Tanks exploded like toys. The human military was breaking apart. Commander Vexthal led the ground forces as they landed in major cities. His soldiers marched through empty streets, their heavy boots making loud sounds on the pavement. The few humans they saw ran away or hid in buildings. Everything was going exactly as expected. "The human armies are finished," Vexthal reported. To his admiral, "Their soldiers are dead or running away. The civilians are hiding. They show no signs of fighting back. We will control this planet within days." But the Empire soldiers did not see what was really happening. In a construction site in Denver, Jake Morrison watched the alien ships land. He was a big man with rough hands from years of building things. He did not run or hide. Instead, he watched carefully. He counted the aliens. He saw how they moved. He noticed their weapons and their patrol patterns. Jake pulled out his phone and made a call. "Hey, Pete, you seeing this?" "Yeah, I'm counting about 20 of them near the construction site. They sweep the area every 10 minutes. Their armor looks heavy, but I see weak spots at the joints." In Boston, Mary Sullivan was treating wounded people in her hospital. She was a nurse with steady hands and a calm voice. While she worked, she studied the aliens who came to check the hospital. She saw how their equipment worked. She noticed they had trouble with the electronic locks on the doors. She remembered everything. In a small Texas town, Bill Jackson stood in his garage and looked at the piece of alien metal that had fallen from a crashed ship. He was an old man who had spent his life fixing cars and machines. He turned the metal over in his hands, feeling its weight and texture. He could see how it was made. He started thinking about his hunting rifle in the closet. The Empire's forces set up their bases in major cities. They put up barriers and posted guards. They announced that humans must follow new rules. Anyone who caused trouble would be punished. It all seemed to be working perfectly, but in living rooms and coffee shops, in garages and basements, something else was happening. Humans were talking to each other. They were sharing information, they were making plans, and they were not afraid. Lisa Parker taught kindergarten in a Chicago suburb. She had 25 years of experience keeping children safe and organized. Now she sat in her neighbor's kitchen with 5 other people. They were drinking coffee and talking about the aliens like they were discussing the weather. They patrol Main Street every 15 minutes, said retired police chief Peter Chang. But they miss the back alleys. And they can't see in the dark as well as we can. My husband says their communication equipment has a weak frequency. Added Susan Bradley, whose husband Tom ran a cattle ranch. We might be able to jam it with the right equipment. These people did not look like soldiers. They wore normal clothes. They lived in normal houses, they had normal jobs. But they were thinking like an army, they were planning like generals. And the Empire had no idea. The aliens saw only what they expected to see. They saw scared civilians who would obey orders. They saw a broken military that could not fight back. They saw a conquered planet where resistance was impossible. They were wrong about everything. The Empire had made their first big mistake. They thought they had defeated Earth's fighters, but they had only defeated Earth's armies. The real fight was just beginning, and the Empire did not even know it yet. In the coming days, the aliens would learn something that would change everything they thought they knew about war. They would discover that on Earth, the most dangerous enemies were the ones who looked like they were not enemies at all. The invasion was over. The occupation had begun. And the Empire was about to face an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered before. 3 weeks after the invasion, strange things started happening. Commander Vextel sat in his command center and read the reports with growing worry. Supply trucks were disappearing. Guards were found sleeping at their posts with their weapons gone. Communication towers were breaking down, and the humans who came to fix them said they could not find the problem. "This makes no sense," Vextel said to his lieutenant. "We destroyed their armies. We control their cities. Where are these attacks coming from?" Lieutenant Jexara looked at the data. "Sir, the humans doing this are not soldiers. They are teachers, farmers, and shop owners. They have no military training. They should not be able to fight us, but the attacks kept happening. Each one was small, but they were everywhere. The Empire's forces were losing equipment and soldiers every day, and they could not figure out who was doing it. In Chicago, Lisa Parker sat in her neighbor's living room. To anyone watching, it looked like a book club meeting. 6 women sat around a coffee table with books in their hands. They talked about recipes and their children's school problems. But they were also passing information about alien patrol schedules and weak points in their equipment. "The ones on Oak Street change shifts at 6 in the morning," said Betty Johnson, who had worked as an engineer for 30 years. "They're tired and not paying attention. That's the best time to move through the area. My daughter Amy says they can't see very well in the rain," added Karen Miller, a high school chemistry teacher. "She's been watching them from her bedroom window." These women did not look dangerous. They were mothers and teachers and workers. They baked cookies and helped with homework. But they were also building a network of information that covered the entire city. In Montana, Tom Bradley moved through the forest like a ghost. He had spent 40 years ranching in these hills. He knew every tree, every stream, every hiding place. The aliens were good fighters, but they did not know the land. They made noise when they walked. They got lost in the woods. They were easy to track. Tom watched an alien patrol through his binoculars. There were 4 of them, moving in a straight line down the old logging road. They were looking for humans, but they did not know that a human was watching them. Tom smiled and picked up his radio. "Susan, this is Tom. 4 of them heading toward Pine Creek. They'll be at the bridge in 10 minutes. His wife, Susan Bradley, was waiting at the bridge with 2 of their neighbors. She had been an army medic 20 years ago, but now she just looked like a rancher's wife. The aliens would never suspect that she knew how to build bombs from farm chemicals. The explosion took out the bridge and all 4 aliens. By the time backup arrived, Tom and Susan were back at their ranch, feeding cattle and acting like nothing had happened. Across the country, similar scenes played out every day. In New York, postal worker Danny Rodriguez used his mail route to carry messages between resistance groups. He knew every building in his district and every person who lived there. The aliens saw him as just another harmless civilian. In Florida, retired teacher Helen Murphy was teaching her neighbors how to make weapons from household items. She had been a high school chemistry teacher for 30 years. She knew how to make things explode, how to make things burn, and how to make things very dangerous. Her students were construction workers, nurses, and shop owners. They learned fast. The Empire's forces were getting scared. They had fought many wars, but this was different. The enemy had no uniforms, no bases, no leaders they could target. Every human looked the same. Every human could be dangerous. "We cannot tell who is fighting us," Captain Nextel reported. "The humans all dress the same. They all act friendly. Then they attack us when we are not ready." Admiral Kethver was angry. "Find their leaders. Destroy their weapons. Stop these attacks." But there were no leaders to find. The humans organized themselves. A retired police chief in Chicago would make a plan. A teacher in Texas would improve it. A mechanic in California would find the equipment they needed. They shared information through phone calls, text messages, and face-to-face meetings that looked like normal social gatherings. The aliens tried to stop the meetings, but there were too many of them. Humans gathered in churches, schools, coffee shops, and homes. They had book clubs, gardening groups, and cooking classes. All of these meetings looked innocent, but information was being shared at every one. In Boston, Mary Sullivan continued working as a nurse. She treated both humans and aliens who were hurt. She was kind and helpful to everyone, but she was also learning everything she could about alien biology and medicine. She shared this information with others who used it to make better weapons. "Their blood carries oxygen differently than ours," she explained to her resistance group. "That means certain chemicals will affect them more than they affect us. We can use that." The Empire's doctors started getting worried. Humans were developing weapons that were designed specifically to hurt aliens. These weapons did not work the same way on humans, which meant the humans had studied alien biology very carefully. In Denver, Jake Morrison had organized his construction crew into a fighting unit. They knew how to use heavy equipment, how to build and destroy things, and how to work as a team. To the aliens, they just looked like workers fixing the city, but they were actually setting up ambush and sabotage operations. "Remember, we're just doing our jobs," Jake told his crew. "We're fixing water pipes and electrical lines. The aliens don't need to know that we're also cutting their communication cables and planting surprises in their supply routes." The Empire's forces found themselves fighting an enemy that was everywhere and nowhere. They could not attack the humans without attacking everyone, because they could not tell who was fighting and who was not. Every human could be innocent. Every human could be deadly. The aliens began to realize that something was very wrong with their invasion. They had conquered many worlds, but they had never faced anything like this. These humans were not acting like other species. They were not giving up. They were not hiding. They were fighting back, and they were getting stronger every day. Lieutenant Jeksara filed a report that would shock the Empire's command. "Sir, we are not fighting a human army. We are fighting all the humans. Every civilian is a potential enemy. We cannot trust anyone." The Empire was about to learn something that would change everything they thought they knew about war. They were about to discover that on Earth, there was no difference between soldiers and civilians. Every human was both. Dr. Yithmar was the Empire's best scientist for studying alien species. He had examined hundreds of different life forms across the galaxy, but the humans were making him very confused and worried. He sat in his laboratory on the command ship, looking at data that did not make sense. "Admiral, we have a serious problem," Dr. Yithmar said during the daily briefing. "The humans are not like other species we have conquered. They are much more dangerous than we thought." Admiral Kethver was getting tired of hearing about human problems. "They are weak creatures with no natural weapons. How dangerous can they be?" "Sir, that is exactly the problem. We have been thinking about this wrong. Other species have warrior castes, special groups trained to fight. The humans do not have warrior castes because they are all warriors." The doctor pulled up his research on the main screen. "Look at their history. They have been fighting wars for thousands of years. Not just big wars between nations, but small wars between tribes, cities, and families. They have never stopped fighting." The data showed something that scared the Empire's leaders. Human children played games that taught them how to fight and think like soldiers. Human schools taught them about famous battles and war strategies. Human entertainment was full of stories about fighting and winning against impossible odds. Every human child learns to compete and fight from the moment they can walk, Dr. Yithmur explained. They call it sports games and education, but it is really military training disguised as normal life. On Earth, the doctor's theory was being proven correct every day. In a small town in Ohio, retired mechanic Frank Wilson was teaching his neighbors how to build better weapons. He had never been a soldier, but he had spent 50 years fixing machines and solving problems. Now he was applying those same skills to fighting aliens. See, if we change the timing on this explosive device, we can make it work better against their armor, Frank explained to his group. And if we use this chemical instead of that one, it will be more effective against their biology. The people listening to Frank included a librarian, a cook, 2 farmers, and a school bus driver. None of them looked like soldiers, but they were all learning to be very effective fighters. In Seattle, computer programmer Jenny Wong was using her skills to hack into alien communication systems. She had learned programming to make websites and apps. Now she was using the same knowledge to steal alien information and disrupt their operations. Their security is pretty basic, Jenny explained to her resistance group. They never expected to fight an enemy that understands technology. We can read their messages, change their orders, and make their systems crash. The Empire's forces were discovering that every human had skills that could be used for fighting. Doctors knew how to hurt as well as heal. Teachers knew how to organize and train people. Farmers knew how to work with dangerous chemicals. Construction workers knew how to build and destroy things. Dr. Yithmur's research revealed something even more disturbing. Admiral, the humans have been studying warfare for their entire history. They have written thousands of books about fighting. They have schools that teach nothing but military strategy. They have turned war into a science. The Empire's military leaders had never encountered anything like this. Other species had warriors who fought and civilians who did not fight. But humans had civilians who were all trained to become warriors at any moment. In Phoenix, kindergarten teacher Michelle Garcia was leading a group of parents in urban warfare tactics. She had learned these skills from books, movies, and games. She had never been in the military, but she understood how to move through a city without being seen, how to communicate without being heard, and how to strike without warning. Remember? We are not trying to win big battles, Michelle explained to her group. We are trying to make the aliens afraid. Every time they lose equipment or soldiers, they get more worried. Every time they cannot find us, they get more frustrated. The parents in Michelle's group included a bank manager, a store clerk, a plumber, and a delivery driver. They were learning to fight like professional soldiers, but they still looked like regular people. In rural Georgia, Farmer Bobby Lee was teaching his community how to use their knowledge of land and animals to fight the aliens. He had never been to war, but he understood how to track, how to hide, and how to survive in the wilderness. The aliens are like city people lost in the country, Bobby explained. They don't know how to read animal signs, how to find food and water, or how to move quietly through the forest. We have been doing this our whole lives. Dr. Yithmur discovered that human culture was built around the idea of citizen soldiers. Every human was expected to be ready to fight for their community, their family, and their beliefs. This was not just military training, it was how humans lived. They have a saying, Dr. Yithmur reported. An armed society is a polite society. They believe that everyone should be ready to defend themselves and others. This is not just about weapons, it is about attitude and training. The Empire's psychologists tried to understand why the humans were so different. Other species would surrender when their armies were defeated. But humans seemed to get more determined to fight when things got worse. In Detroit, factory worker Carlos Mendez was using his knowledge of manufacturing to produce weapons for the resistance. He had spent 20 years building cars. Now he was building devices that could stop alien vehicles and equipment. "We know how to make things that work," Carlos explained to his team. "We know how to make them fast, how to make them cheap, and how to make them reliable. The aliens have better technology, but we have better manufacturing." The Empire's forces were facing an enemy that got stronger as the fight continued. Every human who joined the resistance made the network more powerful. Every piece of alien technology they captured made their weapons more effective. Every day of fighting made them better at war. Dr. Yuthmer filed his final report with growing fear. "Admiral, we are not fighting a species with a military. We are fighting a species. That is, a military. Every human is a soldier. Every human home is a potential weapons factory. Every human community is a military unit." The doctor's data showed that humans had evolved to be the perfect fighting species. They were smart enough to learn new tactics quickly. They were tough enough to keep fighting when hurt. They were social enough to work together without formal leadership. And they were stubborn enough to never give up. "Sir, we made a terrible mistake," Dr. Yuthmer concluded. "We thought we were invading a planet with soldiers and civilians. But there are no civilians on Earth. There are only soldiers who have not started fighting yet." Admiral Kethver stared at the data in shock. The Empire had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never faced anything like this. They had invaded a planet where every person was a potential enemy, where every building could hide weapons, where every day brought new surprises. The Empire was about to learn why humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and they were about to discover that their invasion was not going according to plan. 4 months after the invasion began, the Empire was in serious trouble. What should have been a quick and easy conquest had become a nightmare. Every day brought new attacks, new losses, and new problems. The human resistance was not getting weaker, it was getting stronger and more organized. General Crixville was the Empire's most experienced ground commander. He had conquered more worlds than any other general in the fleet. When Admiral Kethver called him to Earth, he expected to find a simple problem that needed an experienced solution. Instead, he found something that challenged everything he knew about warfare. "General, welcome to Earth," Commander Vexville said as Crixville arrived at the main command base. "I must warn you, this is unlike any war we have ever fought." Crixville looked at the reports and shook his head. "You are telling me that every human civilian is a potential enemy? That they have no separate military because they are all military? This is impossible, but the evidence was everywhere. The Empire's forces were losing equipment and soldiers every day. Supply lines were constantly under attack. Communication systems were being hacked and sabotaged. And the humans responsible looked like ordinary people going about their daily lives. In Las Vegas, restaurant owner Maria Santos was running one of the most effective intelligence operations on the planet. Her restaurant was popular with off-duty alien soldiers who came for the food and stayed to drink and talk. Maria spoke several languages and had a perfect memory for details. She remembered every conversation, every piece of information, and every hint about alien plans. "Table 6 has been talking about a supply convoy coming through tomorrow night," Maria told her resistance contact. "They mentioned the route, the timing, and the security. They also complained about their new armor being too heavy for desert operations." Maria's customers had no idea that their favorite cook was also one of the most valuable intelligence assets in the human resistance. She served them food with a smile while memorizing their base layouts, their equipment problems, and their personal weaknesses. In Minnesota, RETRED teacher Nancy Peterson was running a training program that would have impressed professional military instructors. She taught groups of neighbors how to work together, how to plan operations, and how to stay hidden from the aliens. Her students were farmers, shop owners, and office workers who had never been in combat before. "Remember, we are not trying to win battles," Nancy explained to her latest group. "We are trying to make the aliens afraid to leave their bases. Every successful operation makes them more worried. Every loss makes them more cautious. We are winning by making them lose confidence. The Empire's forces were indeed losing confidence. They had started the invasion with overwhelming superiority in technology and numbers, but they were fighting an enemy that adapted faster than they could respond. Every tactic they used, the humans found a counter-tactic. Every weakness they exploited, the humans found a way to fix. In Texas, rancher Steve Murphy was leading operations that covered hundreds of square miles of territory. He coordinated with other ranchers, farmers, and small-town residents to create a network that could track alien movements across the entire region. When aliens moved through the area, Steve's network knew about it within minutes. Convoy of 5 vehicles heading east on Highway 35, Steve reported on his radio. They'll reach the canyon in about 20 minutes. Lisa, are your people ready? Lisa Thompson was a nurse who had become an expert in explosives and demolition. She had learned these skills from books, internet videos, and trial and error. Now, she was setting up an ambush that would destroy another alien supply convoy. Ready, Steve. We'll take them out at Devil's Canyon. The road is narrow there, and they won't be able to escape. General Cricksville read these reports with growing alarm. The humans were not just fighting, they were winning. They had turned their entire planet into a weapon. Every geographic feature became a potential ambush site. Every population center became a source of fighters and supplies. The Empire's psychological warfare, experts reported complete failure. They had tried to intimidate the humans with displays of force, but the humans were not impressed. They had tried to bribe human leaders, but the humans had no central leadership to bribe. They had tried to break human morale, but the humans seemed to get more determined as the fight continued. In Chicago, mechanic Tony Rodriguez was running a workshop that produced weapons and equipment for the resistance. He had learned his skills fixing cars and trucks, but now he was building devices that could penetrate alien armor and disable alien vehicles. His workshop looked like any other auto repair shop, but it was actually a weapons factory. This new design should punch right through their armor, Tony explained to his team. We tested it on some metal we salvaged from their crashed ships. It works great. Tony's team included a welder, an electrician, a plumber, and a computer technician. They were all using their civilian skills to build military equipment. The aliens had no idea that the human economy was being converted into a war machine. In Oregon, Forest Ranger Pat Williams was leading operations that covered thousands of acres of wilderness. She knew every trail, every stream, every cave, and every hiding place in the forest. When aliens tried to patrol these areas, they found themselves lost, confused, and under attack by an enemy they could not see or catch. The aliens are good fighters in open areas, Pat explained to her resistance group, but they don't know how to fight in the forest. They make too much noise, they get lost easily, and they can't see us coming. The Empire's forces were learning that they were not just fighting the human population, they were fighting the planet itself. Humans had lived on Earth for thousands of years and knew how to use every advantage it offered. They knew the weather, the terrain, the animals, and the plants. They could survive and fight in environments where aliens struggled. Just to stay alive. General Cricksville called a meeting of all his commanders. The news was bad and getting worse. We are losing this war, he announced. The humans are destroying our equipment faster than we can replace it. They are killing our soldiers faster than we can train new ones. And they are learning our tactics faster than we can develop new ones. The Empire's forces had lost more equipment and personnel in 4 months on Earth than in their previous 10 conquests combined. But the real problem was not the losses. It was the fact that the humans were getting stronger every day. In Florida, RETRD engineer Bob Parker was teaching his neighbors how to reverse engineer alien technology. He had spent 40 years designing complex systems, and now he was figuring out how alien systems worked. His team was building human versions of alien equipment using materials they could find in any hardware store. Their technology is not magic, Bob explained to his group. It's just more advanced than ours. But the basic principles are the same. We can figure out how it works, and we can build our own versions. The Empire's high command received reports that terrified them. The humans were not just resisting, they were innovating. They were taking alien technology and making it better. They were developing new weapons and tactics that the Empire had never seen before. "Sir, we are not fighting a primitive species," General Crixville reported to Admiral Kethver. "We are fighting a species that learns faster than we do. Every day they get better at fighting us. Every day we get weaker. If this continues, we will lose this war." The Empire was about to face the most difficult decision in their history. They had never retreated from a conquest before, but they had never faced an enemy like the humans. They were about to learn that some victories were not worth the cost. *. 8 months after the invasion began, the Zephyrian Empire faced a truth that shook them to their core. They were not winning the war on Earth. They were losing it badly, and every day made their situation worse. The humans had turned their entire planet into a weapons factory and their entire population into an army. Admiral Kethver stood in his command center and looked at reports that defied everything he knew about warfare. The Empire had started, with overwhelming advantages in technology, numbers, and firepower. Now, they were being systematically destroyed by an enemy that looked like ordinary civilians. "Sir, we have lost 60% of our ground forces," General Crixville reported. "Our supply lines are completely compromised. Our equipment is being captured and used against us. And the human resistance is growing stronger every day." The reports painted a picture of total failure. In New York, a postal worker named Eddie Martinez was leading urban warfare operations that had shut down 3 alien bases. In California, a schoolteacher named Linda Shun was running a spy network that knew more about alien operations than the aliens knew about human activities. In Michigan, auto worker Ray Johnson had converted an entire factory to produce weapons for the resistance. The aliens thought the factory was making car parts, but it was actually building devices that could destroy alien vehicles and equipment. Ray's team included hundreds of workers who had learned to fight while keeping their day jobs. "The great thing about working in a factory is that we know how to build things fast and build them right," Ray explained to his supervisors. "We can make weapons faster than the aliens can replace their equipment, and we can make them better than what they started with." The Empire's scientists had been studying human technology and making disturbing discoveries. The humans were not just copying alien equipment, they were improving it. They were taking advanced alien designs and making them work better using human engineering principles. Dr. Yithmar filed his final report with barely controlled panic. "Admiral, the humans have reverse-engineered our technology and made it superior to our own. They are now producing weapons that are more effective than anything in our arsenal. We are no longer fighting a primitive species. We are fighting a species that has surpassed us." In Colorado, retired engineer Alice Murphy was leading a team that had built the most advanced resistance headquarters on the planet. The facility was hidden in an abandoned mine and powered by equipment salvaged from alien ships. Alice had spent her career designing complex systems, and now she was building a command center that could coordinate resistance operations across the entire continent. "We have secure communications, advanced radar, and manufacturing capabilities that rival anything the aliens have," Alice explained to her team. "Plus, we have something they don't have. We know this planet better than they ever will." The Empire's forces were discovering that they were not just fighting humans, they were fighting the entire ecosystem of Earth. The humans had turned animals, plants, weather, and geography into weapons. They used birds to carry messages, dogs to detect alien patrols, and even insects to deliver biological weapons. In Louisiana, fisherman Joe Thibodeau was leading operations in the swamps that had become a nightmare for alien forces. The aliens could not navigate the waterways, could not survive in the humid climate, and could not fight an enemy that moved through the swamps like they were highways. "The aliens are tough fighters on dry land," Joe explained to his resistance group, "but they don't know how to fight in the water. They can't swim in their armor, they can't see underwater, and they can't tell the difference between solid ground and quicksand." The Empire's psychological warfare experts reported complete breakdown of their forces' morale. Alien soldiers were refusing to leave their bases. Equipment was being sabotaged by their own crews. Some units were asking to be transferred off the planet. The humans have done something we thought was impossible, the chief psychologist reported. They have made our soldiers afraid, not just cautious, actually afraid. Our forces no longer believe they can win this war. In Montana, Susan Bradley was still living on her ranch with her husband Tom, but she was also running one of the most effective resistance operations in the region. She had trained hundreds of people in combat medicine, explosives, and survival skills. Her students included ranchers, teachers, store owners, and retirees who had become expert fighters. The key is that we look like ordinary people, Susan explained to a new group of recruits. The aliens see a middle-aged woman who raises cattle and bakes cookies. They don't see a combat medic who knows how to make bombs and train soldiers. That's our greatest advantage. The Empire's high command faced an impossible situation. They could not defeat the humans through conventional warfare because the humans did not fight conventionally. They could not target human leadership because the humans had no central leadership. They could not break human morale because the humans seemed to get stronger when things got worse. Admiral Kethver received the report that would end the war. Sir, we are not fighting a military force. We are fighting an entire civilization that has evolved for warfare. Every human is a soldier. Every human building is a potential fortress. Every human community is a military unit. We cannot win this war because we are not fighting an army, we are fighting a species. The Empire's casualties were staggering. They had lost more ships, equipment, and personnel in 8 months on Earth than in their previous century of conquest. But the real problem was not the losses. It was the fact that the humans were getting better at fighting while the Empire was getting weaker. In Ohio, farmer Bill Roberts was teaching his neighbors how to use agricultural equipment as weapons of war. Tractors became armored vehicles. Crop dusters became attack aircraft. Farm chemicals became explosives. Even the livestock were being used to carry supplies and gather intelligence. We've been farming this land for generations, Bill explained to his resistance group. We know how to work with what we have, how to make do with less, and how to keep going when things get tough. The aliens don't understand that kind of determination. The Empire's final reports painted a picture of complete defeat. The humans had turned their entire planet into a fortress that could not be conquered. Every human was a trained fighter. Every human skill could be used for warfare. Every human resource could be converted into a weapon. We must withdraw immediately, General Cricksville recommended. The humans are not just winning, they are learning to fight better than we do. If we stay, we will lose everything. Admiral Kethver made the hardest decision of his career. Begin the withdrawal. Mark this species as extinction-level threat. No Empire ship will ever return to this system. The Empire's ships began leaving Earth as quickly as they could. The human resistance watched the alien fleet depart with quiet satisfaction. They had won a war that everyone thought was impossible to win. Jake Morrison returned to his construction job in Denver. Mary Sullivan went back to her hospital in Boston. Bill Jackson reopened his auto shop in Texas. Lisa Parker resumed teaching kindergarten in Chicago. To any observer, they looked like ordinary people returning to their normal lives, but the Empire knew better. They had learned that Earth's most dangerous soldiers were the ones who looked like civilians. They had discovered that humans were not just another species with military capabilities, they were a species where every individual was a weapon of war. The Zephyrian Empire's withdrawal was complete within 2 weeks. Their massive ships disappeared into space, leaving behind only scorch marks and debris as evidence of their failed invasion. The Empire's final transmission to Earth was brief and terrifying. Species classification: human, threat level, maximum. Recommendation: permanent quarantine. Do not engage under any circumstances. In the years that followed, stories of the Earth invasion spread throughout the galaxy. Other alien species learned about the planet where every civilian was a soldier, where every home was a fortress, where every community was a military unit. The name human became synonymous with danger in alien languages across dozens of star systems. The Empire's military academies studied the Earth invasion for decades. They taught new officers about the species that had no separate warrior caste, because they were all warriors. They learned about the civilians who looked harmless but fought like demons. They studied the humans who had turned an entire planet into a weapon using nothing but determination and ingenuity. Never judge a species by appearance became the first rule taught to every Empire officer. The most dangerous enemies are often the ones who look the least dangerous. On Earth, life slowly returned to normal. The construction workers returned to building. The teachers returned to teaching. The farmers returned to farming. The nurses returned to healing. But they all remembered what they had learned during those 8 months of war. Children played games that taught them strategy and tactics. Schools included more lessons about problem-solving and teamwork. Communities stayed more connected and organized. The humans had discovered something about themselves during the invasion. They were much stronger and more capable than they had ever imagined. In coffee shops and community centers. In churches and schools, the veterans of the resistance continued to meet. They shared story.